want to talk a little bit about the value of the blessing, give you some things to think about and reflect on as we go into this afternoon, into the practical aspect. The principle makes it clear. Father said the whole divine principle boils down to one core truth. Do you know what it is? What's the core truth of the entire divine principle? It's love. That's kind of obvious. But it is parent and child. The vertical axis of parent and child is what makes the world go round. It's the reason we breathe. Because the God of love needed to have the capacity to love by expressing himself. Parent-child relationship is the axle around which the universe turns. It's the reason why the lunch that you're already thinking about is going to taste good. It's the reason, in other words, the reason why food tastes good. It's the reason why rainbows and colors and sights and sounds and our capacity to feel and understand everything that makes life meaningful is because God created to realize his vision of love. And the family is the channel of love into the world. And I want to talk first about the meaning and value of the four great realms of the heart, our experience. When babies are born, if you've heard my creation lecture, I always talk about the fact that babies are born totally centered on who? Themselves. And no parent, reams out their child for thinking only of themselves. In fact, children don't know there's an other, and it's in the mother-child relationship that children first become aware that there's something outside of me. So interestingly, we start completely self-centered. And the path of our life is growing to a greater awareness. Our world expands throughout our life as we go all the way up to God, and our capacity of heart to embrace that world expands. So imagine if every child were born, nurtured, and raised in unconditional parental love. Imagine the foundation that would be there for self-confidence, for creativity, for identity and value. This is the most important aspect of the first realm of the heart, to know my value and identity in the love of God. And the awareness that all of us in the fallen history, in the lineage that came from Adam and Eve, that no one has been able to experience that realm of unconditional love in which we would know our value and identity, where we wouldn't struggle with guilt and the feeling of worthlessness and the idea that we have to earn our value and show ourselves to be good in front of everybody and hide our problems and lack confidence in ourselves and be too proud to admit our difficulties with our partner. Are you with me? Hello? Please stay with me. Okay? The foundation for our capacity to love is self-identity, and that's the most important aspect of the first realm of the heart, to know who I am in the love of my parents. It's not something you can provide for yourself. Fortunately or unfortunately, value and identity don't come from ourselves. They don't come from the clothes we wear, the cars we drive, the group we hang with, the things we do to get approval or to be cool or to be understood or accepted. They come from knowing our value in the unconditional love of God that comes first to us through parents. As I said, children begin in our path to know the love of God. We begin completely centered on ourselves, and as we mature, our world expands, and so should our capacity to love. And the first experience is that children's realm of the heart. And the most important aspect of that experience is to know my value and identity in the love of God. It's not just to become obedient, to follow what my parents say. It's not just to become grateful and respectful. The most important fundamental issue is to know my value in the unconditional love of parents. And even when my father loves me and my mother loves me, but my parents are not united, I can't experience love as it was meant to be. When my parents are inconsistent or struggling within themselves, it's a fuzzy connection. It's a blocked channel. It's not easy for the sensitive and amazing and wonderful nature inside every human being. Every human being is a universe. Every human being has everything that it took to make the cosmos. That's how amazing every human being is. And this sensitive and capable and wonderful, with the capacity to survive, and growing up without unconditional love, we learn how to survive. We learn, if we can't trust, we learn to depend on ourselves. We develop survival mechanisms and emotional protections that, for the sake of existence and survival, but they later become our barriers, our blocks, our challenges in our marriages, in our relationships. Am I making sense? But all those things that you struggle with, you did that to survive. You did that to be able to, if you couldn't find someone to rely upon, if you couldn't find your own identity and value and support and protection, we learn how to exist in a world. You know, human beings have an incredible capacity for survival. When a horrible accident comes and people cut off like here, they go into shock and it doesn't affect them. There's a whole mechanism of survival. Kids in the middle of concentration camps find toys, things to play with. Adjust, find in the midst of their surroundings a way to deal with it, a way. So every human being is meant to be nurtured in original love. And I want to ask you to think for a moment right now, what was your experience growing up with your parents? Where are you in that first realm of the heart? Many of our members join the church, believe in true parents, go forward, and don't want to deal with the painful past of my family. But if there's unresolved stuff, which you may not be able to work out with your parents, it may not be able to be done, but it needs to be worked out. It can't just be buried and forgotten, because it affects how you see leaders. It affects how you see parental figures. It affects how you relate with your spouse. Are you with me? Now, the fundamental way to resolve this is, guess what? This is why God sent the Messiah as parents. It's so that we can be born anew in a relationship with them and experience the taste of love of true parents. And I don't really have time for... There was a moment in my life when it suddenly dawned on me, 2 years into the church, 2 years into my life of faith, that I suddenly understood Father is my Father, that He taught me how to be a man, that He taught me what I'm on the earth for, why I'm living. He showed me what it means to be a husband. And He showed me the vision of what I'm meant to be, and He believed in me, and He challenged me to get there. He is my dad. He did those things for me. And as I came to understand Father's love for me, I went home to visit my parents for the first time. They had come to see me, but I went home to visit them. And they were, cooking my favorite foods and trying to get me to go back to college and letting me drive the cool car and buying me clothes and doing everything. But there was no question in my mind that my parents' love was just not the same dimension. And I let go of my resentment to my parents. I'm sure not fully, but I let go of the part of me that had felt, why did you put me in the middle of your fights? Why did you, I won't belabor the point. Do you understand what I'm trying to say quickly? Because I understood my parents didn't have true parents. And their parents didn't have true parents. So the fundamental resolution here is our emotional and artistic relationship with true parents. But it's also connected to resolving our past. So I want you to think about, in this year of 2012, where are you in that first realm of the heart? How much do you know your own sense of identity and value? What kind of wounds or challenges or issues might still be there that need to be worked on? They can't just be buried. Then the foundation of my own value is the basis for loving others. If I don't feel the love of my parents and my own identity, then what happens in my relationship with my brothers and sisters? What do I feel? What do you think? Yeah, jealousy. Someone's being loved more. And we always compare ourselves to another person. We see someone else get something, we want it, we covet it, we're jealous of it. That's coming from my own inability to know my value. Why can't we celebrate the wonderful things that happen to other people? Why do we always say, what about me? So the foundation of healthy love for others, beginning with brothers and sisters, is children's love. Do you understand? Inside brother and sister realm of heart is children's heart. Right? That's the foundation for it. How many of you have kids? Wasn't their relationship always beautiful? Didn't they all say, you can ride shotgun. I want to sit in the back. I'll sit in the middle on the hump. Go ahead. You take the bigger piece of cake. Is that the way it works? No. I love this picture. It's pretty much like Darwin in the family, right? Survival of usually the eldest, but sometimes the younger one's stronger than their older brother or sister. That's interesting to see, right? But if there's consistent, benevolent authority and love in the center, then children develop harmony. And their relationships, which start out as competition and rivalry and using each other and tricking each other, become, negotiation and cooperation, and pretty soon they have each other's back. And they're bound so tightly together, even when they're trying to get something over on their parents. Did you ever have that experience? Did you ever have your kids try to get over on you and you're so inspired by how united they are? My kids have this story of how they used to throw rice. They didn't want to eat the rice when my wife wasn't looking. They'd go like this. And when we left that house, there was rice all over the kitchen ceiling. Right? They also have stories of escaping the, was it maktegi? The rod that was often quick. So anyway, they have many. Okay. Then on the foundation of children's love, our own identity and value, our capacity to love expands. And sibling love. This is the realm of the blessing. This is what we are recreating in our own families, to be able to give the foundation to our children that we didn't have. Then in the realm of sibling love, we develop all kinds of qualities of heart. And even friend to friend, cousin to cousin. Then suddenly the opposite sex, which is like another planet growing up, right? The opposite sex is like a big pile of cooties. Remember cooties? Do you guys have cooties? I mean, I don't know, you have them, but did you use the term? Did you use the term cooties? Yeah. Then all of a sudden we become interested and drawn and attracted, and now conjugal love is about exclusivity and uniqueness. It's about loving one with greater and greater depth. Mining the depth of the potential of a relationship with one person, far more challenging and difficult than loving many people. And it's in that exclusivity and uniqueness, which is godlike. Uniqueness is godlike. It's in that place that sexual love is meant to be unfolded in trust and love and unity and oneness. Relationships that should be built from the inside out. And so, again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Just want to emphasize about these points in the path of the blessing. Through conjugal love, we reach a different dimension of heart in our dedication, in our devotion to one person, in our capacity for it to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. My wife, I think I shared this in my sermon, I can't remember. At one point, 20 years into our relationship, she was serving True Parents at the Sheraton National Hotel. And Father said, "How's Philip?" He asked her, because Father knew I had cancer. And whenever he saw me, he would say, "How's your cancer?" I really didn't like that. And he asked, "How's your husband?" My wife, she never told me this, but two elders who were at the table mentioned this story. She put the tray aside and she bowed full kyungbae to True Parents, and she had tears in her eyes. And she said, "Father, I'm so sorry because I never appreciated the man you gave me. But now I'm so grateful for who you gave me as a husband." And that was in many ways an experience that we both reached around the same time. My wife, which is often a challenge in couples relationship, wanted me to be different. I remember 15 years into our marriage, I said, what are the 3 things you'd like me to change? And she had her list so fast. She said, clean up, be on time, and here's the painful one. Wait for it. Do what you say. Very legitimate list, right? Very legitimate list. Yeah. And, but for my wife, the struggle was, and I think for many men and women, but this is often a challenge for wives, to be able to love the man that was given to her. Love him for who he is. Because it's in that love that someone can change. You can't change a person. You can only love them. You can't change a person. You can only love them. But when someone truly has their challenges and difficulties melted by love, they will change. They will respond. They will grow. I have a book I'm going to show you later I dare you to read it. It's called Real Love. I'm going to show it to you later. I dare. Has anybody read it? Okay, good. I'm going to show it to you later. I think it's scary to read. You mean that my spouse's problems are because of what? No, what? That can't be true. I've made it so clear to myself and to them until now whose fault it was. Yeah. But that's a very profound element coming out in marriage guidance now about the fact that you can only change your marriage. Anyway, I'm going to leave that alone because that's a valuable topic for today. And what did I do with the... Thank you. So going deeper and deeper in one relationship and opening up in sexual relationship. And I'm going to talk a little bit about sexuality in a couple minutes from a spiritual point of view, more a spiritual point of view than a practical one. But then in that relationship between husband and wives, all different types of relationships. Elder brother, younger sister, elder sister, younger brother, father and daughter, mother and son, lovers, friends. We should be able to explore and experience all these different realms of the heart. And if you're sitting here feeling like, well, my marriage is nowhere near that, well, and I don't know how to get there. Part of our premise this afternoon is that it is our responsibility, but we're not just meant to do it alone. There are lots of methodologies and support systems and ways of addressing these things, even learning about them. And they're not unprincipled. They are divine principle. How to create give and take. How to live for the sake of the other. What does it mean practically? There's a lot of things we'll be talking about this afternoon. And then we graduate to parental love. And forgive me, I don't mean to pass over it, but because of time, this is where we are most God-like. This is where our love becomes the most like God's on the foundation of growing our hearts through these experiences. It all starts with feeling good about who I am. If you don't feel good about who you are, you got to get down to that place. If you feel contradictory in yourself, if you don't feel your own value and identity, we're not playing a game here. We're not looking good on Sunday. That's not what this is about. We've got 6,000 years of work to work through in ourselves. It's not simple. It's sloppy. The Bible's filled with sloppy mistakes. Losing 21 years. The best people in history screwed up over and over again. The heroes of humanity failed. Join the club. Okay? Father went through difficulty. I saved several quotes from Father talking about his own mistakes. He doesn't walk around thinking he's the greatest guy in the daytime, in front of us. Father will challenge us. I'm going through this on your behalf, for your sake, because of what... But at nighttime, Father goes in front of God and weeps like a baby. And I've heard him. And sometimes on holidays when Father prays about his life and his voice goes up really high and he's crying like a baby, listen and feel what he's talking about. It's all gratitude. It's all unworthiness. It's all being overwhelmed by how much God has given me that I've done nothing for. That's the heart inside the man. That's the heart with which Father leads us. So he feels totally responsible for everything. I assure you of that. So we draw the diagram going this way, back to God, because we become godlike in parental love, but actually our capacity of heart is expanding as parents. And it's in this realm that God wants to dwell. And when the right tradition is established in the lineage, according to true parents, according to original substance of divine principle, that's where Shimjung, that's where the real experience of heart and my real identity and value as a child of God and my real capacity to love can develop. And we're still recreating this realm out of a miserable and confused and painful and contradictory world, bringing all of our ancestral burdens and challenges that we need to overcome. So don't be discouraged. Again, I tell you, God believes in you when you can't believe in yourself, because he's the only one who knows who you really are. He's the only one who knows the parts of you that are true and original and can never be taken away. And everything that's false can't last. It has to die. It has to die at some point. And so it's in this realm. And you see 3 generations here. Well, no, you don't. Here they come. There they are. Sorry. I got a little ahead of myself. And when Father talks of 3 great kingships, it's anchoring the foundation of this tradition of love in 3 generations of my family. That's really too simple, but that's, for now, to establish that in my own lineage. And if a son or daughter has lost their way, nobody have I found who believes in all of our blessed children. I haven't found anyone who believes in our blessed children more than true children, knowing that who they are is a reality, the foundation of their birth and the lineages of their parents and the foundation of true parents, and confident that they will find their path and that their destiny, their path has changed, not their destiny. Not who they are. Their identity and value hasn't changed. Even Father told us when a blessed child falls, they don't become first generation. That's what we used to say. And don't worry, this is not a new theology to make everything excusing. It means that the foundation of their birth, who they belong to, especially since God established his 3 great kingships, and then true parents established 3 generations in their family. So the foundation is there for the tradition to be established and developed and manifest. So let me ask you this. In the original world, in the original world, do you think it's possible, in the ideal world, do you think it's possible for a young person to make a sexual mistake? To have sex before they're mature? In the original ideal world, do you think it's possible? Think about the principle. If they're still growing and they're not in direct dominion and they have a portion of responsibility, is it possible? Sure, it's possible. But would it give the whole world to Satan? Not if the foundation is established. It would be painful, emotionally damaging. They would go through a lot of difficulties. They'd have to heal and grow and restore and renew, but it wouldn't turn the world over to Satan. That's the situation, a glimpse of the foundation that your parents have made. It's not just giving carte blanche to our blessed children. That's not what we're talking about. This is part of what Father's been doing to recreate. So our original ancestors were meant to grow to personal spiritual maturity. And in that maturity, oneness with God, they would be free to express love. They could master the power of love, the most powerful force in the universe. They could control sexual desire. Pornography, the naked, idealized image of a perfect specimen of the opposite sex. And believe me, your spouse is never going to be like that. Would have no, pornography, the fantasized, would have no attraction, no confusion, no interest in a mature person. A mature person who knows who they are, who understands what love is. But Adam and Eve fell prior to reaching maturity. And we know that we're blessed at this point. The first generation was blessed providentially at this place to work out the problems that develop between man and woman from the beginning. So let's talk about the blessing and come to a conclusion here. You hear the word conclusion, I'm just trying to give you hope. No, I have to finish. Oh. Actually, I'm probably just going to cut it short in a few minutes, just because I want to keep faithful. So, are we okay though right now? Are you okay? Is it unfair for me to ask you? Because what else can you say? No. So, essentially, the blessing fundamentally, the origin of the problem is self-centered love between an immature man and woman. The ultimate solution is God-centered love between a man and woman to restore through that relationship. That's the fundamental pattern, to reverse the direction of love, to reverse the mistakes that were made, to heal and renew. That's the fundamental idea of the marriage blessing. But we know that the corruption of love involves somebody else. It involved a false love coming from a false master. And this pattern became the basis of all the problems in the world. This, you can see Jersey Shore reflects this problem. Who doesn't know what Jersey Shore is? God bless you. Wonderful. Okay, good. Just wanted to. It's a reality TV show, one of many. Inside this relationship, we can see all the archetypes of false and fallen relationships, of teachers that seduce their students, of what destroyed Joe Paterno's career at the University of Pennsylvania because an underling had abusive relationships with little children. I could go into a long list of the problems between men and women that grew out of this false relationship. But here is the root. There is the core. And that's what true parents challenge through the blessing. And we know that Abraham's family established that pattern of reversal. And in Jesus' lineage, over and over again, in women who did not go to the men that seemed to be appropriate and were in the position of archangel, but went to someone, a central person in the position of Adam. Tamar, who pretended she was a harlot, Rahab, a prostitute, Rahab, who was a prostitute, Ruth, who tried to seduce Boaz, and you know the stories. This one is very profound, David and Bathsheba. He stole Bathsheba from her husband, actually. And yet God blessed the relationship. He was chastised for the manner in which he did it, but yet the relationship was a holy and providential one, and he is the definition of Messiah. You have to be a descendant of David because of this course. And of course in Jesus' own family. We won't go into details. Why is it that Mary did not go to her betrothed, was accused of getting pregnant before she was married, was nearly stoned to death? We now know the secret. And even though that's, Father revealed that as a revelation, how many of you are familiar with this book by Mark Gibbs? Anybody know Mark? Mark went to UTS, and then he kind of became distant from the movement, and he went to Fiji. He lives in Fiji, and he spent about 10 or 12 years researching historical evidence of the relationship between Mary and Zechariah. And you'd be amazed. Do you know that the Catholic Church celebrates the Feast of Mary every year? Do you know what that is? It's the day when Mary, as a young girl, was given to the chief priest as a temple virgin and lived in the temple. And you know that many of the temple virgins had providential relationships with the chief priest, and the child was considered sinless. That was a tradition in Israel. And here it is. Here's Mary being given to Zechariah in a 17th century painting. Here's Elizabeth giving Mary to her husband. And he's touching her. He's an Orthodox priest. He's not supposed to touch a woman. And this is a symbol for the woman's sexual organ. This is a symbol for sexual relationship. And there's one after another. Here's the temple virgins. One of them is pregnant. Mary rushing up the steps to the waiting arms of Zechariah. These are all symbolic of sexual relationship. No time to go into that, but you can read it in the book. And this is how many of you have heard of this book? This is a guy who never studied the divine principle, but 40 years of archaeological research, he's concluded that Jesus had a human father. John the Baptist was supposed to support him. He was supposed to be king of Israel, and his family was supposed to be the followers. He was supposed to rule. His royal family This was the destiny. It's all in the archaeological background and the scriptures. So Father's own course followed the course of restoring what Father called the cross of love. And then Father bequeathed that tradition to our families through the blessing. And the blessing, many of our sisters dreamed of being intimate with Father, because that is internally, Father is true Adam, restoring the wife. The holy wine is given this way. The 3-day ceremony goes this way. Without going into all the details, for the first generation, all of these processes Father considers holy and necessary. Why he wants to keep the first and second generation process unique is not because of condemnation, but because those who are born from the fallen lineage need this restoration course in Father's mind. This is a grace to reconnect to the original lineage. So our parents, the first generation, experienced this process in the blessing through the engagement ceremony, where we trusted God to choose our mate, to restore the selfish love of Adam and Eve. We received the holy wine from Adam, from Father, to the bride, to the husband, to symbolically restore the spiritual fall and the false relationship that happened on the spiritual level. We participated in the blessing ceremony, where true parents took responsibility for you and your descendants, connecting them to their own lineage, connecting us to their own family and lineage forever. And that's how they feel, and that's the condition they were making. We indemnified the misuse of our sexuality, like circumcision and like Jacob having his thigh knocked out of joint. The separation period was meant to be much more than just don't talk, don't touch, go fundraise, and then come together and have a 3-day ceremony. Unfortunately, some did it that way. But this was meant to be a profound mother-son restoration, where the tone of the family was to be set by the heart of the woman, guiding, and through unconditional love, to separate that relationship from the false sexuality, the archangelic approach that men are struggling with. I'm not going to go into that really deeply, and we didn't know what we were doing, many of us. How many of you had any understanding of what that period meant, mother-son relationship? Probably some people had some idea, right? But many of the things that happened here, and also many of the things that Father guided us about witnessing and about 3 spiritual children, have an important spiritual foundation for our marriages. And then the profound, this was for me the deepest experience. I'm not going to tell you a testimony though. And we only knew one thing with our lives. The one thing our parents did with our lives was to love true parents more than our life. We didn't know anything else. We couldn't earn the blessing, we couldn't buy it, but we understood what religion teaches, to love the things of heaven more than the world. To love me more than your parents, and so we left our families. Your enemies will come from your own household, Jesus said. How many of you have relatives that hate the church? And we left our schools. We left our careers. And later, all of a sudden, we had a resume with a big hole in it. Anybody have a resume with a big hole in it? And all we could do was start a multi-level marketing thing. We went through tremendous struggles, right? Because we wanted to follow what religion, because of one thing, we wanted to love true parents more than our life. And through that was our condition to receive the blessing from true parents. For whoever seeks to gain his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. So we got the blessing, this precious tradition, to bequeath to our children. Our children then can be born on a different foundation through true parents. Through the blessing ceremony and the simple conditions we made, we can change our lineal position, remove the accusation that Satan has as part of that false lineage. And our children are born on a different foundation. Second generation is born on a different foundation than you and I. And so we offer them on their 8th day. We offer them to God. We acknowledge that. You guys are still alive, and I've got 5 more minutes, okay? 5 more minutes? then our second generation's course to the blessing is not indemnity sticks and 3-day ceremonies and all kinds of things. It's the original path of the 4 realms of the heart, to the best that we could create it in our family. But our kids are kind of like amphibians. I always tell the second generation, you're amphibians. You're walking this original course, but you still came out of the water, but you're still wagging your tail. You still got the vestiges of 6,000 years. You're still influenced by the environment and ancestral sin and the emotional baggage of the house you grew up in. Sorry. Parents say, speak for your own house, Reverend Schenker. But there is a spiritual merit and a foundation that we inherit from this whole historical process. How many of you have heard of the science of epigenetics? Reverend Schenker, what are you talking about now? How many of you heard of epigenetics? This is a 30-year-old scientific a branch of science that understands that our genes, our genetic makeup is not hardwired for all of our life. Our genes turn on and off. Originally, it was understood by the environment and pollution and the food we eat and diseases. But now, studies are showing, this is a great book. How many of you are familiar with this book, The Genie in Your Genes? It's not talking about your Levi's, okay? Here's one quote from The Genie in Your Genes. Memory, learning, stress, and healing are all affected by classes of genes that are turned on or off in cycles that range from 1 second to many hours. The environment that turns genes on and off includes our inner environment, our emotions, biochemistry, our mental, our energetic, and our spiritual landscape, and the outer environment. Food, toxins, social rituals, sexual cues. Researchers estimate that approximately 90% of all genes are turning on and off in relationship with our environment. What is that saying? It's saying that the quality of your life is what you pass on. That's what the blessing is all about. Most of our second generation, I know Tamar and Adam, I know it puts you to sleep. Bible schmeibel, Tamar shmamar, who cares? But if you understand that the quality of the life you live, what you achieve in your relationships, the artistic, bad things can be passed on. Alcohol, a tendency toward alcoholism, tendency toward same-sex attraction. All these things can be passed on. Similarly, good things can be passed on. The quality of our life does convey a message and a content that's in our lineage. This is what research is beginning to show. I'm going to skip this. Okay, you with me? There is meaning in what we're doing here. There is something that we inherit from true parents. There is value in the blessing. So God's original divine principle tells us that the perfection, the oneness of masculinity and femininity in God is meant to be perfectly expressed in the oneness of husband and wife. Father said when husband and wife come together, living for the sake of the other, with the motive to center on God, we create a 90-degree angle. And God's love comes down like electricity. It travels the shortest path possible. And when we live without shadow or guilt, 90 degrees, high noon, right? Without something hidden inside, without some crap going on, without some lack. These things all need to be opened up and worked through and be honest with someone. We're not playing a game here. We're not trying to act out and look good in church. We're actually doing something real that we're trying to pass on to our children. And then in that quality of heart toward each other, God comes and dwells. And the place that that's expressed most is in our sexual oneness. And that's where the blessing is meant to be unique from the rest of the world. The world can't give you. And I acknowledge that most of us as couples are still on the path to figure that out, our sexual oneness. I'm amazed in counseling how many men are not even aware if their partner has an orgasm. How many people approach sexuality all of a sudden with a physical impulse and are unaware of what it means to give, what it means to not only make oneness physically but also emotionally and spiritually. And that's not just something you do when you get into bed. It's something you do before you're married. It's something you do as you prepare for the matching and blessing. The path of realizing that in your marriage is a path you're on from the moment you're born. It's the path of the 4 realms of the heart. And the quality of our oneness as husband and wife is creating the basis for our own children's experience of the 4 realms of the heart. Does this make sense? I hope it doesn't depress you. This is Father's teaching that we're passing on to our children. And that in our oneness, we're meant to experience not only physical oneness, but, if you've ever masturbated, and if you've ever had a deep sexual oneness with your blessed partner, it's a very different experience. Self-centered sex, for my own physical gratification, is a completely different realm. I've experienced both, I confess, okay? And it's two different things. The meaning of sexuality, the potential, the dimension. The world can't teach you that. You can go on the internet and learn all kinds of positions. Some of our second generation are thinking about all this kind of stuff. But the world cannot give you the inner content of intimacy and trust and love and holiness that comes from building it right. And we're working that our next generation does it better than we did, and then next, and then next. And also that in our lovemaking, Father said, everything goes. Everything is okay. Now, there's a few things, I don't know about you, a few things I can't imagine. A few things I don't want to get involved with. But I'm not going to try and interpret that, okay? But the point is that it's for the sake of the joy of my partner. It's for the sake of resembling God. And it's for the sake of creating a lineage. It's not just to reproduce children. It's for all those things. Giving God joy. God wants to experience the fulfillment of our intimacy. And this is the place where I read it in Father's words this morning. Actually, Father said it in the Hundoke this morning. That when we come together with God in the center, that's the ultimate unity of our mind and body. When we can experience absolute sexual fidelity with God in the center of our love. Now, that's a path we're still on. Maybe some of you have reached it. Maybe there's a guru here. If so, we'll ask them to give a demonstration with their partner this afternoon. No, I'm just teasing. But this is what creates the environment of God's presence in our family. And I just want to close by showing you the beautiful second generation. And I'm sorry. These pictures are really old. I haven't updated them. I've got Unha and Christian in here without their kids. I'm so sorry. I need to get a new one. Is that cool? Jenkins. Oh, there's one. They're taking care of New Jersey. Dave and Mitsuru. Oh, yeah, Mitsuru. Oh. You want me to take it out? I'll take it out. No. Now, I know. Whatever stage you're in, whatever challenge you face, we are developing a ministry and a support system to really deal with stuff, real. There's so much I want to say, but I have to end. Josh and Hiromi, they're going through a challenge right now, and I'm working with them. And they're beautiful two children. Sorry, these are old pictures. How come I have all the Steins in there? What the? So if you have more pictures, you can give them to me, and I can update my presentation here. But the beautiful lineage and tradition. Do you know what? How many of you think that most second-generation matchings and blessings have failed? How many think that most second-generation matching and blessings have failed? Anybody think that? You really do. You just don't want to raise your hand. That's the scuttlebutt. Because people hear anecdotal evidence, or people go through painful experiences yourself, and then it seems like all you hear is about their breaking. I don't have figures before 1984. I'm sorry, before 2004, because that's when I took over the department. Okay? And we know that early on we had idealistic expectations. God is there, everything's going to work. And we didn't have a matching process, and we didn't educate well, we didn't take care. But right now, we're at about 80% success. That's not great. That's not great, since 2004. And we've just done an analysis of all the couples in America, and I have a list of everybody who's gotten matched and blessed. That's not a great record, but it's something to work with, and as we're improving and strengthening. And also, we're developing processes, so if a relationship falls short, it will end in a healthy way, not in a damaging way. That it's worked through, the lessons are learned, that it's not done in secret. We know I don't want to get letters anymore. I'm done with my blessing. Bye-bye. We've been struggling for 10 years. We didn't tell anybody. I'm done. I don't want that anymore. And you guys got the ideal year form. Don't lose that. We're going to talk about it later today. the ideal year form. There's my blessed family. Okay, this is supposed to, oh, it's this one. That's what it's supposed to be. All right, I'm sorry. I couldn't control myself. But we made it by lunchtime. It's dangerous to have me stand up. Are there any questions? Questions, Reverend Shaker? No, please. Just a couple. Is that okay? A couple of questions. Hi, Manai. Yes.
I enjoy the whole family ideal and everything, but I struggle dealing with it is the parents as king and queen. My whole inner self rebels against that.
Mine too. Did you hear his question? He said, the beauty of the family ideal I can relate with, but the whole idea of true parents as king and queen, I struggle with. And I said, me too. I struggle with temples. I struggle with, I was raised a Unitarian, if you know what that is. And my ancestors are Jewish. Of course, they built temples, but they're more practical in there. And that's why I wanted to emphasize that I think the point is, first of all, we both have a legacy in our cultural traditions, in our political traditions, in America's tradition. And are you Austrian or German? Austrian, okay, but very influenced by the experience in Germany. We have a political and a cultural tradition of distrusting authoritarian leadership. America was founded on overthrowing the king. That's how we were founded. And then Father got into the Capitol and got crowned in the Capitol. Woo, where people are mad at Father for that. How could you desecrate the American tradition? So my understanding is it's not about Father wanting position, of course. It's about conditions to restore sovereignty and offer it to God. The crowns ultimately belong to God. And it's a tradition that I have a hard time relating with as well. Yeah, and that's the best answer I can give. Yes, Richard.
The position of king and queen is God's position, so you're establishing God's position in the family.
Good point.
Everyone has to establish themselves ultimately in God's position.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Guess what? Each of us is meant to realize, you pledge it every time you pledge, the realm of the royal family. Thank you very much for clarifying that. It is God's position that is royal. And since we are meant to be the indwelling of God, we're rising to that level. True parents are showing us the way for all of us. That's absolutely correct. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for clarifying. One question more? Yes, as long as it's not about forms. Okay.
Well,
no, it's okay. No, if you want to ask it, no, go ahead. Ask what you want.
what's required of me to bless?
You and I will sit down tonight and we'll simplify everything. His pain is the fact that, I'm going to explain this in public now, okay? If you knew how hard our Blessed Family Ministry is working at headquarters to unveil and develop a ton of things, one thing we did was reform the whole application process, okay? And here's what we did. Before, people did all the applications before they went to the blessing. But we realized that to make a healthy matching process, people should be mature and prepared before they start. Right? Many people in the early matchings, one of the reasons they weren't really ready. Sometimes kids were in relationships and their parents were trying to match them. There wasn't communication between parent and child. They had different expectations. There was no family plan. So everything we've developed has been based on our experience of what works and doesn't work. So part of it was then we moved the whole application process to happen before they go to start the matching process. So the purity interview takes place. And so they don't have to do another purity interview before the blessing. Just anything that has happened in between, they should be able to offer up. But there's still two problems. That means that now that I've been matched already and I'm about to go to the blessing, why should I have to fill out this kind of stuff? I've already got a partner. I'm not going to infect her with anything. What's going on here? So we haven't yet cleaned that up, and I'm very sorry. That frustrated Michael, because why do I have to fill out all this paperwork? But Kevin, I'm sorry, thinking of your dad. Sorry. His dad. Yeah, that's frustrating him further. Okay, no, but I will tell you this. One reason why things like the application form for sexually transmitted diseases, it's offensive to some people. Some people say, "Why? I'm already matched and blessed. I've never lived an impure life. Why do I have to fill this out?" Because we have a world filled with many different cultures. Because some cultures are dishonest. Because people all over the world, people are being matched with people all over the world. And if we create exceptions for you, there are people that actually have gone to the blessing having fallen and lied. We need to create a standard to protect you and every blessed child. That's why we're doing it. But the complicated nature of the process needs to be simplified. But if we say, well, it's between the two of you, there are cultures, as I said, where people aren't honest. They don't, we have a different cultural strength and weakness in our culture. It's offensive to you, but if I say, well, we can make an exception for you, then what about all the other people in the world that may not respect it, that may hide, and as has happened, a blessed child infected another blessed child with a sexually transmitted disease because they couldn't confess it. They weren't honest about it. So if we start making an exception, I know it doesn't fit for you, but this is a standard because our goal is to protect all blessed children and to qualify candidates. So the complicated nature of the process needs to be reevaluated. Many things don't need to be done, but there is thought behind each of those things. I don't know if that makes sense to you. And the church has a responsibility to other families. It's not just, it's to other families. Our job, Father gave the Blessed Family Ministry the responsibility to qualify candidates on behalf of true parents. Father used to interview people personally. So we're trying to make the process so that you don't confess 10 times to the same thing to 5 different people. The confession never goes to headquarters. It doesn't go with the application, and it's being burned after the blessing. We're doing our very best to respect the privacy, and when there are difficulties, we try to keep complete confidentiality. There's no dots and signs when you go to the matching and blessing. We're doing our very best, but there is a reason behind those things. And also this year, you can do a blessing workshop locally. You can do it with DVDs. We are developing small group study materials. We are encouraging people to do the blessing education in small group meetings over 8 weeks. You don't have to go to the official workshop. That's completely being changed. It's going to take us the rest of the year to get the curriculum written and printed because we have a limited staff and we're doing 20 other things. But in the meantime, you can use our PowerPoints. We'll work with every local district. So if you don't want to go to the main workshop, now actually level 3 with the couples, that takes a little bit of expertise in relationship education. So right now, that one is one that we encourage people to come to. But we'll work with you. I'm sorry for our limitations. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry I kept you long. I hope you'll forgive me, and I hope that there was something in it that was worthwhile. Can you join my prayer? Beloved Heavenly Parent, help us to understand the precious historical value of the blessing. Help us to understand the incredible path that true parents walked and all that we are in a position to inherit from them. Help us to understand, Father, who we are and the new tradition that we're creating. Help us, Father, also when our brothers and sisters and members in our community make their own choices about the path that they want to walk, that we can have the maturity and the self-confidence and the security in ourselves to affirm our own beliefs and values and yet respect and embrace those who walk a different path. Let us not judge one another. As our community expands by the inevitable choices and unique ways that people go, still, no matter who I go to the blessing with, it's still a tradition of unselfish love and placing you, Father, in the center of our relationship. And it's still built in that kind of way. Help us, Father, to establish that tradition in our own community and be able to affirm the standards and traditions that true parents are teaching and to be able to teach them to the world. Let this community, however limited we are, become the instrument through which true parents can bequeath their heart, love, faith, values, and tradition to all of humanity. We are truly unworthy, but we pray, especially in this final year before Foundation Day, to grow and learn and deepen and prepare the best offering that we can for January 13th. Gratefully we pray, and we want to embrace the rest of this day together. I ask, pray, and report in the name of every blessed Central family in this room. And I pray in the name of the Schenker family, a blessed Central family. Adieu. Thank you. Is 1 hour okay for lunch? 1 hour? So that at 1:40 we'll gather here?
That's good.
Is 1:40 doable? Any announcements? Okay, you're free from me.
You're free, but you can find him.